Bambiz presents Elder Law Growth, the podcast that helps elder law and estate planning attorneys attract clients without wasting time or money. I'm your host, Jim Blake. Let's dive in.
Hey friends, I'm Nicole. Welcome back to the Elder Law Growth podcast. Last month, we had Irene DeJesus from Coastal Legacy Law on the podcast with Jim, and she shared her journey into elder law. Plus, why estate planning attorneys might want to consider making that move. Super inspiring stuff, so check that out if you haven't. But this week, we're back with another session from our Estate Planning and Elder Law Marketing Summit, and this one's with Mahle from Get Staffed Up. It was definitely a fan favorite, but honestly, most of the talks were. But this session is packed with gold on how to build and train an incredible team for your firm. So whether you're hiring your first assistant or you're growing a dream team, this one is for you.
All right. So now that we kind of got an overview of what we are going to be learning, how you're going to be growing your business, one of the biggest things that we've kind of seen as a pattern throughout a lot of these different things that you're going to be learning is passing the baton, meaning hiring team members and growing your business and not being the only one who's in your business. We're working more on your business. Who here already has people on their team? You already have team members? Awesome. Who here doesn't yet? You're on your way. Excellent. So one of the biggest obstacles that we tend to find when starting a business or when passing the baton to other people is what exactly? Difficulties?
Hey everybody, thank you so much. Before I get started, Jim did a fantastic job of laying out challenges that you all face. And those three pillars, as we go through the speech, I want you to really think about those three pillars. Because what we're talking about here, absolutely, it's a concurrent path, right? You can't really do one without the other. And I'm really excited to be here. Another disclaimer at the beginning, I see a ton of smart, educated people in here. So a lot of what I'm saying is going to be reminding you, right, of things you probably already know. Please never take my tone as condescending. Okay? Can we have that agreement? Good? Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to shift gears a little bit because you're going to sense a lot of energy from me because I love talking about building teams, whether it's a sports team, whether it's a band, whether it is a law firm, right? So I'm just very excited to build teams. And when it comes to building a high-performing team, there's a couple things you have to understand up front. And I think Jim did a great job of laying it out for you. It is not a perfect path, but it is the path you need to take, right? If you're going to expand the amount of time that you personally are able to engage with clients, use to the best of your abilities, okay? So, one thing I always tell law firm owners is Ringo Starr wasn't the original drummer of the Beatles, right? There are changes there are changes within the group, there's changes in what you're going to need. These tools, these options that you have at you have never been better, they've never been more available, and they've never been at better prices for you, right? So as you're looking to grow the firm, again, you know these things. I'm going to try and just present you with, the ability to see through some of the muck, some of the things that are already in your head, concerns that you have. And then I'm also going to encourage you to take that brave next step that Jim talked about. Okay? Good? All right, awesome, let's talk. Okay, so thinking like a boss. We're going to talk a little bit about the Pareto principle here in a moment. Staffing, delegation, you guys can read. Maximizing efficiency. You guys, these are all steps that we need to take when you're thinking like a boss, right? It's hard, especially if you're early on in your firm's growth. Sometimes it's tough to kind of access the boss inside of you, right? These are the things, when you look at this, when you look at what we have to do, these are the things that you need to be thinking like. Inspiration through delegation. What does success look like? If you have that vision, you can make it happen. Okay? All right, Pareto defined. So, who here has heard of the Pareto principle? Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking. So, Pareto principle, I'm going to make it very simple. 20% of your money comes from 80% of your work, 80% of your money comes from 20% of your work, right? And that's good. That's included in a lot of different things. So when you look at the roughly 80% of outcomes result from 20% of causes, that is the Pareto principle, okay? So then naturally our goal is to make sure we're doing the right 20%, okay? All right, 20%. Can everybody see? Yeah, okay. Customer care, 20% of products may generate 80% of complaints, right? So this isn't just sales. This isn't just like your billable hours. Website traffic, 20% of pages may generate 80% of traffic, right? Sales, 20% of sales reps may generate 80% of profits, okay? Okay, so let's take things one step at a time. When you're building your team, the very first thing you need to do is identify what are the key positions, right? What are the things I need to get done? And what are the things that I hate doing? Those are two great places to start when it comes to identifying the key positions, okay? The other thing is using that Pareto principle. Where does your money come from? Think about where your money comes from. Where can I get my clients from? Who is most profitable to me? Start there when you look at identifying key positions. You can optimize your resource allocation. You can delegate non-core tasks, right? If it doesn't fit there, don't do it, right? If it doesn't fit there, you as a business owner especially should not be doing those tasks, right? You should be doing the things that make you money. Empowering staff, right? So I saw a lot of hands go up when I asked if you guys had staff. If you have staff, you understand the difference between empowering your staff and simply having a staff, okay? And then strategic planning and execution. It's hard to sum up the value of strategic planning and execution in one statement, so we'll save that for later in the presentation. So I do have a question. Do you guys feel like the 20% of tasks that yield 80% of your firm's results, do you feel like you know what those are? I find, so like I work with hundreds of clients, and what I find is most know what they are, or they have a sense of what they are. Sometimes there's a barrier, though, to actually accessing those tasks, right? To getting those off the plate of the business owner, okay? Focus on delegating the remaining 80% of the tasks. Again, this is a road I don't want you to think that I think you can delegate all 80% of your tasks and have all your problems solved and be, on the beach, 3 days out of the week. That is not my expectation for you. There's a lot of steps along the way. There's a lot of baby steps that you can take. And you can also tailor this to your firm, right? Benefits, enhanced productivity, reduced workload, improved focus, greater scalability. We talked before, Jim said you can't scale without people, without growing your team, right? You can't do it. So this really impacts that. Okay, identifying the key positions. One of the things I see as a typical pitfall is not defining, usually the expectations are pretty well laid out, but the performance metrics. Like, what does it mean for this role to be successful? What needle has to move for this to actually improve, right? Improve what's happening here at my firm. If you take nothing else away from this speech, define your performance metrics for those 20%, okay? Consult, gather insights, perspectives on positions are considered most important, right? Ensure your key positions align with the business firm's strategic priorities and long-term vision, okay? Consider the needs and expectations of clients, right? One of our biggest fears is, hey, is this going to work? Is the client going to like this, right? So when you're identifying these key positions, consider the impact to the client. The client is what pays your bills, right? So really consider those. Think about the expectations of clients. So I told you before to look at the actual tasks, right, that work for you. Then also compare them side by side with what your clients are looking for, right? And in between, you'll find the easiest stuff and the best use of your delegation and team building. Okay? Analyze the workflows and identify tasks that directly contribute to that success and profitability. Make sense? First hire is the hardest hire. Have you heard that song, "The first cut is the deepest"? Right? Like that's what we're talking about here. This is the one that takes guts. This is the one that really, really takes guts. Right? And it's not because there's not a high likelihood it'll be successful. Right? It's because it's a high likelihood it's going to change how you do things. Right? And sometimes that change to something like, hey, I'm comfortable, I built this thing, I'm comfortable, I finally feel like I have a grasp on how my day should look. And then you're volunteering to change the way your day will look. Right? First hire is the hardest hire. Here are the questions. Typical, right? What if I can't pay them? Good, like relevant, right? Fear of investing and losing your money, relevant. What will other people think? Maybe less relevant, but hey, we all care, right? And then fear of putting yourself out there. This is the one I hope you can get over. Jim did a fantastic job of hammering home like that troll, right? That story with the troll. Like, look, don't let that troll stop you from building a team and building the life you want to build, right? We're not going to let that. We're not letting that person in the grandma's basement win. I refuse, right? So when you're looking at that first hire, these are the fears we typically have. When you look at those fears, I'm actually going to go back one real quick. When you look at those fears, I want you to understand they are rational fears. One thing I always say is I work for Get Staffed Up, which is one of the vendors here. One of the things I always end up telling clients is that this is your survival instinct, right? This is your survival instinct kicking in when you're like, I'm not sure if I should do this. That is a healthy thing. The other thing I say is we are in the people business, right? People by nature are predictably unpredictable, right? So you're going to have the path is very rarely straight, right? But the path does get you to where you need to go. So when you see that, and again, this is already something you're volunteering to kind of take a step, get uncomfortable in order to make yourself more like the future, to make the future you more comfortable. Don't let fear of putting yourself out there hold you back. Okay? Okay, so the cost of hiring staff. Platforms, right? There's plenty of ways you can do it. You can have time-improved client service, onboarding and training. There's a cost to all of that, right? And you guys have that stuff accessible to you, so I'm not going to dig too much into that. But what I do want to get into is the benefits, the value of bringing on team members, okay? So when you look at where do you start, typically a lot of law firms start with an executive assistant. The reason why they start with that executive assistant is because that executive assistant can typically do many things. Is delegating many things to someone who's a generalized position, is it optimal? No, right? Usually we want to delegate to a specialist, right? When people come to you for their services, they're looking for someone who specializes in what their need is, right? That makes sense. But at the beginning, that first hire, you're getting your feet wet, you're not sure. A lot of times, a law firm owner is not sure what the first thing should be, right? Even after you go through that exercise of what's the most important thing, it helps to have someone who's a bit multifaceted on your team to help you navigate that and have a partner. Because it gets lonely at the top, as many of you know, right? And then receptionist, intake specialist. You can see here the investment, right? And I'm using, what we do for offshoring, okay, for obtaining offshoring. But you can look at that investment number can change. The firm revenues before hire and the firm revenues after hire, those you can count on. Whether it's someone you're hiring from your own hometown, whether it's someone who's offshore, whether it is simply delegating it to someone else in the firm who has a lower billable hour, right? A lower billable rate. If you can triage your work, your billable hour, protect the worth of your billable hour, all of a sudden things really start to change at your firm. And then you can see here how quickly this can add up with a team. Okay? Optimizing resource allocation. Evaluate your current resources. Identify impact areas, right? Implement lean practices. Invest in technology and automation. If you guys haven't had a chance to walk through and talk to my fellow vendors out there, automation, tools, resources, allocation. If you think your team has to be a person who works in your office or even for your office, you're thinking too small. Your team, at least part of your team, lives out in that corridor right now. They can help you invest in technology. They can help you with the implementation of lean practices, right? So yeah, treat them like people. I agree. Like, we all want to feel like people out there, but treat them like team members that you're bringing on now. Okay? Because they've got solutions for you that can really help. And don't think that that's not building your team or building your firm. Make sense? Okay. Staffing, planning, and execution, right? We've got some key considerations here. Again, client impact, employee well-being, flexibility. One of the best things you can do, a lot of times we think of bringing on a new team member as a burden, and a lot of times it is for your other team members when they start. That is definitely possible, right? But the other thing I've seen is the biggest request that we get is people who are like, hey, my team said we needed another person because they're working 50, 70, 90 hours a week. Like, they're the ones who are usually the ones who really want you to make that change and build and add to that team. Okay, so something to consider, that there's a benefit to your existing team beyond just you and beyond the person that you're bringing on. Delegating non-core tasks. I'm just going to let you guys read this real quick. I'll tell you the ones that make the biggest difference in my experience. Clearly outline the task's objectives and expectations. Provide training and support, establish communication channels. Those are the two that you can establish before the person walks in the door. So that's the part. If you're looking for control, like if you're concerned about losing control or giving up, kind of ceding control to someone else or fearing what the expectation will be, you can tackle these two before they even walk in the door, right? So you can eliminate that fear or that barrier before you even start your search. Does that make sense? It does, okay. How many of you got into law to be law firm owners? Okay, how many of you? It is fine if you are. I'm not hedging. I truly want to know. And then, how many of you got into law to be lawyers and practice law? Okay, that's generally the feedback, right? And I think law school reflects that, right? Because most of you like study actual law, and then the firm, like the actual building of the business, you get way less education on actually running a business, right? So that's something to keep in mind. So when you're delegating the non-core tasks, like, we want to get you back to doing the thing you want to do. And whether that is shifted to being a law firm owner, I know a lot of law firm owners who are like, hey, I fell in love with like the administrative side of growing this thing. That's great. I know a lot more who are like, I just want to focus and practice my practice area. So The other legal work, like drafting contracts or legal research, can be delegated to associate attorneys, paralegals, and legal assistants. Again, protect your billable hour. The more protected the billable rate is at your firm, the better it is for everybody involved. Okay? Power station. The power station is essentially providing clear guidelines, deadlines, and SOPs. Do you know where your team that you bring on, do you know where your team members, do you know where they get their energy from? From you. You are the power station. Now, you can be attentive to that power station. That can be something that perhaps is your role in the firm, but what I've seen work really well is when you can walk away, when you're at this event, and they can still plug into the power station. Right? They still have all the access they need to complete what they're doing. They have all the access to the information. They still have team members, people working with them, who can help them move things along. Okay? You'll see here, foster collaboration, offer ongoing learning opportunities, delegate authority. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And again, pretty easy to see the benefits. Now we're going to talk a little bit about delegation in the 80-20. Tasking and delegating. You can see the difference here. Tasking, assignment of something to another person. Delegating, shift of decision-making authority from one organizational level to another. I'll give you a personal example for how I differentiate between these two. Tasking is when I ask my son to go do something like do a household task. Hey, Grayson, can you move the laundry? Delegating is when I say, hey, Megan, my wife, sorry. Hey, Megan, can you go move the laundry? One is a task that I'm still thinking about, like I wonder if he's going to do it. I wonder if he's going to do it right. I wonder how it's going to go. I assume I'm going to have to go follow up and make sure it's done right. Delegating is, I gave it to, I asked my wife to do it, and I'm no longer thinking about it.
Do you always delegate to your superiors like that?
Yeah, we have a unique setup in our house where I'm allowed to do that. Yes. Because of the task, right? It's a high-performing task. It has to get done. She's willing to get into the muck to do that. No, that's so yeah, tasking, delegating. What I would say is the tasking, don't think of it as not a win. It is a win. When you're building your team, if you have tasks to give away, you're going to have people tell you, no, you should delegate. Absolutely. We all want to delegate. If you're tasking, as opposed to doing those tasks yourself, like the key to that example I just gave, I'm not moving the laundry, right? In either of those scenarios, it's still a time saver for me, no matter how I look at it, right? Tasking is good. Delegation is great. Sometimes you have to be good before you can be great. Accept that, understand that, and that's okay. Does that make sense, you guys, the difference between those two? Good? Okay, perfect. All right, so when it comes to delegation, and I mean that truly delegation, right? Delegating to those that have the skills and giving opportunities for learning and growth are key, right? Because your team is going to grow and be successful based on two things: the guidelines, the setup you provide to them, their ability to actually work the way you want them to work, and then also on them, right? Their work ethic, their capabilities, their skill set. So it's funny, I think Jim and I just used different numbers, but same theory, right? Well, not in theory, same proven math. Increase your income by setting aside time each day to focus on those big item tasks, right? Have you guys ever done the Stephen Covey? Anybody here ever done a Stephen Covey or a Franklin Covey course? They do a great job of laying that out. So I'll just throw that out there. You might want to look into their kind of tips for delegation. There's a lot of great ideas. They really maximize taking what's urgent and important and most valuable and putting them into play. Okay? The $10 work, right? This is the part where you start building your team. You should not be doing $10 per hour work, ever. Make sense? And now's probably a good time for me to go back to the thing. I hope none of this sounds condescending. Okay, good. Delegate almost everything, right? What you'll find is there's very few things that actually access your top most valuable billable rate. Right? There's very few things that are actually worth your time. And one of the things that happens, if you're looking at it, especially for a solopreneur right now, and you're saying, I'm not sure, all of this stuff has to get done. I need something. If you bring on that first hire, the thing that you immediately get back is the ability to meet more people. Again, don't be small-minded about your team. Your team is not just your employees. It's not just the vendors who support you. It's your network, right? Get out there. The time that you can spend face-to-face with other attorneys, right? It's valuable. That's half the value of being here today, right? Is getting to share, getting to learn. You're going to find more value. Your value is higher than you're giving yourself credit for.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure. Yep.
What is your feedback in a situation where you say, okay, I want to hire a receptionist because I shouldn't be answering my phone, right? And in your mind as a business owner, it takes very little energy to answer the phone if that's all you're doing. And so you say, let's say for example, okay, I'm going to put this position at $50 an hour and nobody wants it. But you know as a business owner, that's all you're designated on is answering the phone, and you can't visually see why they would need more.
Right. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say use offshore virtual assistants. That's what I'm going to say. But that's cheating on my side. But you do have that resource. Now, if you do find yourself, plug in any other number, right? If you feel you're in that position, the best thing to do is to find more, just build up. You have realities, right? So you just need to build up the tasks that you have. Again, it kind of goes back to that executive assistant. Look, that receptionist, it's not worth my time full time. But if the receptionist can also do X, Y, Z, and you take those tasks that we talked about, those 80%, believe me, there are plenty of tasks to add up, right? Where you can get to that, where that value does start making sense. And it also gives the person who's doing the position a broader breadth for their resume, for their career, more exposure. Make sense? Okay, great. And we can talk about it more after also. Okay, sounds good.
I think you're looking at that job wrong. That person's your first marketing contact.
Yeah.
That's the impression.
Yeah.
So it's not just answering the phone.
Very true. Very true. Okay, so we're going to make the red hot chili peppers and give it away now. All right, so when it comes to those tasks, when you identify who has skill set, motivation, who can do this, method of sharing, how are we going to share this, assess results, who won, how did we get there, that's the next step. So what gets us out of bed? Contribution, empathy, motivation. This is your team members. If you're wondering how to keep them motivated and on track, this is how. Okay? If you build it, they will come. Bit of a field of dreams motion here. But really, once you get to know them on a personal level, support and encourage them, follow through, be fair and open, don't keep secrets. Okay? It's like any relationship. It's going to be best when you're the best version of your half of that relationship. Okay? Here's what happens. Here's what success feels like. Palpable feel of weight being lifted, right? The tasks are complete. The meeting even exceeding your expectations, less turnover, right? Reputation is everything. There we go. Over to the end.
And also everything that Jesse has taught us here today, this is all from personal experience. He has helped hundreds of teams grow. So please listen to that. What is one thing that you've taken away about teams, about Jesse, about what he just talked about here? Maybe it's a takeaway, maybe something you want to discuss with your team, or maybe your first team member who you want to bring up. So just take a couple seconds here. What's the number one thing you want to be focusing on in relationship to teams? What is your focus in this area?
I like what he said about protecting your billable hour.
And why is that important to you? Revenue. Yeah. Very motivating. Or anybody else? I kind of like this. Anybody else? Yes, take away in the back. Get a team.
Having a team is more of an investment into your company than expense.
Love that. Okay, one more. Yes.
The idea of having specialists, talk about client intake specialists. It's hard for me is because I want to be able to offer different types of jobs. So you can have, hey, I just need someone part-time. There's lots of people looking for part-time work.
Yeah.
Like, your client intake, you're only going to have to work 15 hours a week. There's people that want those jobs.
Absolutely. There's a spot for everyone. You know, like think about the things I like that what Jesse mentioned is like, what are the things that you love that you don't want to delegate? And that's usually doing what you do best. You know, no one can replace what you do in law, but everything else is delegatable. If that's even a word. It is today. You know, I like the difference between tasks and delegating, you know, like what are just some things that you do not need to do. You could bring somebody else into the team. Okay, excellent.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Elder Law Growth Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things marketing for elder law and estate planning law firms. Here you can find all of the tools and skills you need to market your own practice without wasting your time. If you like this podcast, please leave us a review wherever you're listening. And if you're ready to take the pressure off and let our team handle your marketing, visit bambiz.net and book a free call with us today.